nationals last month, said at the time to be illegal immigrants. The decision is unlikely to bring back those who had been deported to Myanmar, which is struggling with the fallout of last month's military coup. But the court's move does extend a stay barring the removal of another 114 Myanmar nationals until the end of the judicial review. The Malaysian government repatriated the deportees on 3 Myanmar Navy ships, hours after an interim court order to ban the removal.
Olivia Chan of Reuters. France may soon join a handful of countries with laws aimed at repatriating stolen money and assets to their countries of origin. But anti-corruption watchdogs say the draft legislation needs changes to ensure the assets don't go back to corrupt leaders. Lisa Bryant reports from Paris.
A luxury townhouse on Avenue Foch, one of Paris's chicest addresses, is caught up in a years-long legal battle between France and Equatorial Guinea. The African nation argues the mansion is part of its diplomatic mission. French prosecutors claim it's owned by Théodorine Obiang, the wealthy son.
Just look at it. If your dead caught in a religious some respect. Sometimes you give a person respect and anointing of the Holy Spirit. See that also.
Equatorial Guinea is appealing the case, and France's highest court is expected to examine it shortly. If France wins again, the millions of dollars in assets would normally end up in its public coffers. But a new measure making its way through French Parliament may change that trajectory. If it becomes law, the millions would instead head back to Equatorial Guinea, targeting its majority poor population.
This is the money that was stolen from people that work hard in their country, people that really need this money, and then we need to make sure that it will go back in those countries and use it properly.
Deputy Hervé Berville of the ruling La République En Marche, or LREM party, is helping to sponsor the measure, which was passed last week in France's National Assembly, but still faces a Senate vote.
It's really important to really tell our citizens and the citizens of the world in those countries, in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, that France and other countries will not allow like dictators or son of dictator to take money that is not their money.
Anti-corruption groups praise the legislation, but they argue some of the language needs strengthening now rather than later, as Deputy Berville promises. Sandra Cossard is director of French NGO Sherpa.
For us, the legislation is not completely adequate to what we were expecting, and especially it's lacking these principles which are for us, mandatory, that should be.
This hospital system or healthcare system that has been chronically underfunded, and right now there is a need for every single thing, including blood. We do not have a blood bank in Equatorial Guinea. So right now, in the midst of COVID, the government has reached out to the community to say, come and donate blood. We do not know, given the chronic underfunding in the hospitals, what system they have in place to ensure that the blood they're getting is adequate to transfer to somebody else. So there are many problems over here that have been compounded by the fact that we have very incompetent people in government for the last 4 decades. I've spoken to a couple of doctors, both of whom have told me that the only hope here is for foreign aid, either from Medicine Sans Frontiers or Red Cross, the International Commission of the Red Cross, to arrive from neighboring countries to help. Otherwise, and again, these are doctors in Equatorial Guinea, in Bata, who tell me otherwise they fear that many people are going to die in the coming days. This is what you get, when you have 40 years of one of the worst authoritarian kleptocracies in Africa and in the world. President Obiang, his son, his family has been leading Equatorial Guinea down a rabbit hole or down a cliff for the last 40 years, not investing their resources in building hospitals.
And that was Tutu Alicante, human rights lawyer and the executive director and founder of Equatorial Guinea Justice Organization. And a number of you have been commenting on some of our stories, especially that of the almost £6 million pounds to be returned by the UK to Nigeria. When will they return our historical religious books and materials stolen by soldiers to Ethiopia? Asked Ashenafi Teklu on our Twitter feed. You can respond to by texting us +4477 86 20 50 75. This is Focus on Africa on the BBC World Service, and our top story today: about 20 children are believed to have drowned in the sea off the coast of Ghana. 12 bodies have been recovered so far. Our reporter Thomas Nadi travelled to Apam Beach.
Many in Apam, a coastal town in southern Ghana, are still struggling to come to terms with their loss. Some parents are still desperately waiting news about their children. About 20 children went out to swim on Sunday, but never returned.
The good results for President Alassane Ouattara's RHDP party as a result of Ivory Coast legislative elections are published. Plus, South African music legend Black Coffee tells DJ Edu about the early adversity he had to overcome to reach the top. And Isaac Bannon has a full sports bulletin in which he'll be telling us you don't need to be signed to a club to represent your nation.
BBC News with Julie Candler. The largest ever study of violence against women has found that a third of the world's female population suffer physical or sexual violence at some point in their lives. The report by the World Health Organization says partner violence is by far the most prevalent, affecting over 640 million women worldwide. It says the problem has got worse during the pandemic. There's been another day of mass protests across Myanmar despite violent efforts by the military to crush opposition to their seizure of power. An official from the deposed National League for Democracy died in custody after he was arrested in the early hours of Tuesday morning. Nearly 2,000 people have been detained since the coup. Police in the Philippines say they may have killed Ronaldo Aquino, the mayor of the central city of Calbayog, and 5 others by mistake. Mr. Aquino, 2 of his aides and 3 policemen were killed in a mistaken confrontation with anti-drug officers on Monday. Britain has said it will return to Nigeria nearly $6 million stolen by a former state governor who was convicted in the UK of money laundering and fraud. It's the first time funds recovered from criminals have been sent back to Nigeria. London said the money would be spent on improving infrastructure, including roads. Jury selection has begun in the United States for the trial of Derek Chauvin, the white former police officer accused of murdering George Floyd in Minneapolis. The killing of Mr. Floyd, who was black, triggered nationwide protests against racism and police brutality. President Macron of France has relaxed the process for declassifying military documents related to the Algerian War of Independence. The decision is part of wider moves to promote reconciliation and address the legacy of French colonial rule. BBC News.
You're listening to Focus on Africa on the BBC World Service. I'm Bola Mosuro. The time is 7:33 almost here in the UK and in Ivory Coast, where the ruling party, RHDP, has won the legislative elections which were held at the weekend. Although the results are provisional and have to be confirmed by the Constitutional Council, the Electoral Commission has said the election was free and transparent. Well, the party's former presidents, Henri Konan Bédié and Laurent Gbagbo, who had boycotted presidential elections in October, had parliamentary candidates on joint lists. Well, the BBC's Noel Ebribou joins me now from Abidjan. Evening to you, Noel. So it looks like the ruling party won comfortably. Is that fair to say?
Yes, correctly. It's very fair to say that, because the ruling party won more than 137 seats at the parliamentary. Of course, these are provisional results, but it will be confirmed in a few days by the Constitutional Council.
And what does this mean in terms of how he will now try and pass laws in the country? Will he have an easy ride, or will the opposition still form any form of struggle or challenge to him?
Well, it's going to be very easy for incumbent President Mr. Ouattara to pass laws, and this is what the opposition wanted to stop in the country, because remember that in 2016 there wasn't represented at the parliament, so Mr. Ouattara passed a law for the third term, and he went for a third term. So this time the opposition wanted to come back after 10 years of boycotting the elections to combat this kind of law passing at the national assembly, at the parliament, But also the opposition. Yes, please.
I was just going to ask, actually, Noel, in terms of the alliance that Laurent Gbagbo made with, former President Henri Konan Bédié, how many seats did they get together, and what does this mean for them as the opposition?
Well, this alliance was very profitable for them because they got 50 seats, and PDC, which is former President Henri Konan Bédié's party, and EDS, created recently by